right, so I'm currently on the phone with Daniel Morrissey. He's another musician that reached out about the current interview session. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Daniel Morrissey. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm an audio engineer and a mixing and mastering engineer.
Awesome, perfect. Well, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So with these interviews, I always kind of like to get into the history of how somebody got into, what they're into regarding music. So tell me a bit about how music kind of first came into your life and how that played an important role to you.
Well, even though I like producing music, producing magic. I mean, it's kind of part of what it is.
The same thing,
yeah, exactly. Producing music, whether it's like mixing, mastering, recording, that type of thing. It all started with me, playing, taking some formal lessons. Nothing really exceptional in terms of my background, to be honest. My parents were the one who tried to get me into doing something because, sports were an option as a kid, extracurriculars, and that type of thing. Sports in general, I could figure games out. Wasn't super athletic, but when I got into music, something just kind of clicked a little bit more intimately, just with my psyche, I guess. And I was always one of those kids that needed more of a creative outlet for just about anything that I was doing, whether it be like drawing or, just poking around on the piano or guitar or something like that. And my mom was the one, I think, who actually got me my first Fender Squire, kind of just like everybody else, the crappy little combo amps. And having an exposure to music, having it play around the house and listening to stuff on the radio. To me, it was always something that was just kind of existed. And for the longest time, I didn't really think about the process of kind of what went into it or how people actually played it. But once I started getting exposed to more records and, meeting people that were into stuff that I was into, through elementary school, middle school, what have you, it kind of broadened my horizons. So I have a lot of people to thank for where I am today, to be honest.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about when you picked up an instrument versus starting to begin to learn how to actually create with it. You mentioned that, at some point, you got a couple guitars and you're starting to learn that. Throughout that process, were you playing along with your favorite songs kind of thing? I think you mentioned you were doing private lessons.
Yeah, I like I said, I took about a year of formal lessons with guitar. My teacher was really, really great and he was a super nice dude, but he kind of wanted me to learn more of a classical style with finger picking, which I was more of a rocker kid who wanted to do a lot of really fast songs. And everybody kind of goes through that phase where they want to learn how to shred and all that stuff. But I basically, once I started learning music, a lot of it came down to, looking up tabs online and just kind of figuring it out from there, just kind of trying to put it together in my head. So back when I was a kid, I used to start with really simple stuff, obviously not super consciously because back when you're a kid, literally everything is hard. And you're I have no idea how I'm going to do this or how people play stuff like this. And, when you're picking up guitar for the first time, I usually gravitated to something like Green Day or something like that, back in the early 2000s. American Idiot just came out. And so that was a huge thing at school for a lot of kids, myself included. I just became obsessed with the guitar tone and the arrangements and all that sort of stuff that went into it. Not so much the technical side of stuff until much later, but just began thinking about how I could do something like that and apply it to how I play.
So going through all that, did you kind of go through the process of being the singer-songwriter type and trying to, write songs and then record them? Or was it all kind of just tinkering, learning the instrument?
It was a little bit of a mix of both. I mean, it was a real hands-on learning experience. It was one of those things where I didn't really have the means to record anything. So when I was starting to tinker around and just play with my instrument, I would try and write little songs or little riffs or something like that. And, just trying to make stuff that I thought sounded cool, basically trying to emulate a lot of what I favored with guitar tone or lyrics or stuff like that, subject matter, that type of thing. Obviously none of that was very good, but nobody is when they're starting. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't so much later until I started really actually trying to hone my skills on how to actually make a song in the technical sense. So a lot of it did start with me just playing around and trying to figure out actually how to play before I even hit record on anything. And if there was a point where I wanted to get ideas down, it was mostly just sitting on like my computer with Audacity or something like that, and like singing into like a Turtle Beach microphone or something crazy, something super low budget, very, very bare bones. But yeah, there was really nothing too much to that. It was mostly just a very, very expansive um, palette of trial and error. That's the best way I can describe it.
Okay, so tell me about how that progressed into becoming more the technical side of it and leaning into the audio visual side.
So I was very much an amateur up until I would say probably even after college, because when I first started playing guitar, I was about 9 years old. That was my mom first got me my first Fender, and like I had been playing, pretty off and on for those 9 or 10 years up until I actually left the house to go to school. And then, going to college, university, whatever you want to call it, it's like the perfect time to meet new people, try new things. And having this been something that I was super into, previously, I just began hanging out with people who were kind of doing this more frequently. Even though I went to school for film and like minored in editing or whatever, like I always was still really fascinated by the audio engineering world. And I gravitated towards it more once I realized that those friends that I did come in contact to like had actual access to it, and we could get together and like jot down some ideas and just jam or busk or like do whatever, because we went to school in Chicago and I had a pretty bumping scene just to start with. So my friend Jeremy, honestly, Jeremy Gordon is like one of my best friends. I owe him all the credit in the world for just kind of introducing me to this type of thing. Just like, doing his best to work with me to show me how the subjectivity of the art form kind of crosses over with the objectivity of the science between engineering, music, stuff like that. So once I got just more connections with people, that's when things really started to take off.
Okay, so tell me about how that has transitioned into, your adult life, because you mentioned that you're super into like engineering and stuff like that, and then working with other musicians to kind of create with them. But what's your vision with that? Do you want to like put your artistic splash on like what their like creative vision is? How do you kind of interpret that yourself?
Well, I'm kind of I'll tell you the process of kind of how I got there into adulthood, and then tell you about how that's kind of molded my vision, as it were. So after college, like I didn't really have a whole lot of direction with like what to do in life, because it was just, I was kind of floating, trying to find freelance for video, graphic design, stuff like that, stuff I knew I was good at the time. But I also, kept music in my back pocket because I felt like that was something I could get really good at. And that's when I started getting like a lot more involved in like independent music scenes, specifically not just within the realm of Minneapolis, but a lot of the shows that I actually wind up going to are in places like Champaign-Urbana and Tolona, Illinois. They have a really great music scene there, still very active. But a lot of my favorite bands from like the mid 90s had originated down there. There's like this really weird concentration of like insanely good music that came out from there like 30 years ago. And like I said, they still do, and the music scene is still active. But, part of my involvement with that was just kind of wanting to be a part of it and just like going and seeing for myself, like kind of what it's all about. And so like through independent music, you start to learn about a band that you like, and then you go through their whole discography. Well, then maybe you go and look through their whole label's discography and their roster and stuff like that. And then you look at album credits and see like who mixed what. So a lot of the names that come to mind for me are guys like Steve Albini, Mark Rubel, Matt Talbot, all personal heroes of mine who, they're part of a huge part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing today, because you go down and you see these independent shows, festivals, what have you. It's all community driven. And I think that's just kind of what it's all about, is just like people helping each other out to make things run smooth and have a good time. And that's kind of how I want to impart my mark on the scene. Is I try my best not to leave my own stamp on somebody else's work. You know what I mean? I just want to engineer it for them so they can get what they want out of their experience with me, because I don't really I mean, I have my own projects and stuff, like I work on my own music, but the last thing I want to do is to make an impression on what somebody should or should not be doing with their own art, because I think that is something that ultimately comes down to them, because it is their vision and it is their call at the end of the day. So a lot of those independent shows and people that I've worked with and talked to and have ultimately become friends with has just been like such a whirlwind experience of, you know, exposure to this type of world that I don't think I would have had access to if I just didn't go out and do it. So yeah, it's one of those things where trying to be as active as possible to make people, I guess, just kind of happy, like with what you're doing. That's like all you can really ask for these days. I mean, with an independent music, yeah, there's no real profit or anything to it, like other than like, the friendships and the community that you build around you. Like money is supplemental to all that type of stuff.
So tell me about how this exists in your life. Are you doing this full time for like a studio, or are you like freelancing it and then hiring out clients? How does it fit into your life?
Currently, I'm freelancing it. I always try and go and lend a helping hand when I can. Like I said, if I do go down to a festival, I can say something like Illinois, like I'll do like set up and tear down or something like that. Or maybe if I'm going to a friend's house show, I'll do like the same thing, or maybe stand by the sound guy and just kind of study what he's doing, just because I've never ran live sound before, but maybe that's something I could get into. But in terms of like actual like engineering, um, it's entirely independent from my point of view as well. Where I stand right now, I don't have access to like a big fancy recording studio. I just do everything out of my bedroom and get my friends together and try and just make the most of what we have.
Okay, sure. So tell me about how those clients come to you. You mentioned them a bunch of your friends, but do you like ever post out there say, "Hey, I'm freelance recording," like out on Craigslist or whatever, anything like that?
Yeah, I feel like if you are really hyper focused on the social media like exposure type thing, that's like, it's a good thing. That's just another way to market yourself. But like I said before, it's one of those things where you just kind of go out and do it. Like meeting new people is like a big name of the game. Like going to shows and like talking to people, shaking hands, and it's not just doing it to further yourself. You're doing it because you like want to do it. Um, it's just basically networking at the end of the day, and just like a constant stream of trying to keep networking. So it's not like I'm above going out on social media and like reaching out to people, or like maybe even contacting some bands myself. But it's one of those things where like you don't really want to like push the issue of you coming in and offering them something so you can get something out of it. It's just like you just kind of want to be around, offer people something that you can be good at, and maybe they'll keep you in the back of your mind. It's really just a numbers game, but you don't do it for ulterior motives. You do it because you want to do it and for the love of it and for art's sake. It's nothing that, like I said, it's nothing super profitable in terms of monetary value. It's more of a communal thing.
Yeah, that's a great philosophy about it. That's kind of why I do these podcasts, is just kind of help out the community. All right. Well, where can people find you if they do want to try to work with you and get something recorded?
They can go to squarespace.17studiosmn.com. I think that's the website link. If I screwed that up, then that's my fault. But you can also reach out to me at 17studiosmn@gmail.com. I also have a running project called Sound Escape. My YouTube channel is Sound Escape MN, as in Minnesota. And yeah, I would say those are probably the best ways to reach out to me.
Perfect. So I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So what's a message that you have that you want to share with people?
I would say just do what you're doing because you love it, and it'll take you a whole hell of a lot further than anything you could possibly expect, especially when you have a ton of friends involved or you make new friends that can be involved. I feel like that's what it's really all about at the end of the day. I know it's kind of the cliche. It's like it's about the friends we made along the way, but I really can't stress enough how much that is actually true when it comes to stuff like this. Your friends are everything, and networking's everything, but do it because you want to do it, and don't do it because you want to get ahead of everybody else, because that's not the point. It's about doing art for art's sake.